and sort of the capital / operating stuff. Lucky guy's been cross country in Montana, looking refreshed, and there he goes. And then we'll switch to basically the rest of the sort of manager's requests that we haven't gotten to yet. I think we can move pretty quickly through a lot of those, and then we're going to finish up with a little bit of kind of following up on the conversation last week on, the current tax rate, the commitment, where we've been in the past, kind of Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth, how I've got a sheet just that kind of outlines this whole history of commitments, tax rates going back to 2009, that I think will be helpful for people to kind of understand. For me, it just kind of tells the story of taxes and commitments in Ellsworth over the last 15 years, which I think will help kind of see where we're at. And then I also have we've compiled the list of all the service center mill rates in the area, which I think will be an interesting balance just as we head into the final week, next week, of budget review processes. And that's when we'll kind of, for the most part, hopefully be pencils down on the manager's recommendations and the change logs that I've seen from council. We've gotten through most of those. If we have time tonight, I think I'll just take you kind of where we're at there. But next week, kind of just the big ticket items that I think we're pretty much finalized on, but I'll just, on ARPA, capital / local roads, TIF, which is, a lot of mostly accounting, but, we're finalized there because it does affect the budget, that it's accounted right. The debt, and I think there's one other thing I was missing in there, but I outlined it in the agenda. The new staffing requests and the COLAs, which I'm sort of lumping together. You'll actually have, I think, the first time since the 2019, maybe 2020 budget book with, every single position in Ellsworth broken down. This is what we'll give you tonight. I've had a brief look at it. The team has been pretty much in Nate's office for 2 days staring at Excel sheets to go by hand and the actuals from paychecks to make sure that, all of the benefits, so you'll have, every single employee kind of by position and department, where they're at, what the benefit amounts are for each one, what is 0, 2, and 3%, or 0, 2, 3, and 4% COLAs would do to the budget. And, I'll include that in your packets for tonight, so if you want to kind of review those things as well. But we'll have more of a robust discussion of that and the new staffing requests and how those affect the budgets. That'll probably be the last big thing. The other ones, I think I have pretty good guidance on what council is looking for there. And I think it'll just be, hey, this is the ARPA that we've talked about. Here's where it goes. This is the capital and the local roads we've talked about. This is kind of where we're ending up. So hopefully it'll just be kind of the big ticket items for next week. And then we go to the budget finalization the week after that for the special meeting. And, I think that the length of that meeting in some ways will depend on, if we want to go to line item votes on specific things or if council is generally aligned. I think it'll kind of be a test of how I've been able to read the tea leaves of where we need to be on these things. So, but maybe, especially Michelle and Tammy, I know you've done this a fair amount of times to getting some guidance on how we want that final meeting in the budget to look. There has been times where it's just the kind of pass, it seems like, and then there's been times when specific items get voted on for increases or decreases. So we'll try and outline a process for how we can go through that meeting. Any questions before we get to it with Hart Ellsworth?
It sounds great.
Great. I know I'm very much looking forward to 2.5 weeks from now. So, Cara, I'll leave it to you to maybe talk about the budget revision.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for time at during tonight's session. My name is Cara Romano. I'm the executive director of Heart of Ellsworth. We are Ellsworth's downtown organization, are part of the Main and Main Street America organizations. And this year, we are seeking full Main Street accreditation for the city of Ellsworth. I guess just to sort of start out, I appreciate the opportunity to submit a revised budget based on some new information since January when our letter request was sent by our board president, Eric Collenber. So before I sort of dive into things, I guess I just want to ask if everyone, I believe everyone has received a revised budget request, just sort of has a thing at the top, okay. Looks like I'm getting some head nods, and I don't want to go through a lot of things that you folks already know. I feel like for the most part, you all are pretty familiar with our organization, who we are, and where we stand right now. So maybe I'll just open it up to questions, or if you want me to start at the top, I'm happy to do that, but I'm going to let you guys kind of drive what information you need.
Just to understand the spreadsheet here, the city contribution request, that's your revised total now is 25,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
Down from 57,000, which
Okay.
we asked for this year.
And just remind us which lines from that you cut to get to that 25?
Sure. So what we did was we revised quite a bit of the, let me just see here. We revised quite a bit of our, kind of our line items that was informed by conversations that we had had with individual city councilors. So, for example, the $25,000 for small business support that was in our original letter, we decided to cut that this year because we were told that that probably wasn't something that council was going to fund this year, despite the fact that last year, Heart of Ellsworth did bring in over $60,000 of outside support to support the downtown businesses, which part of that was used for a myriad of things, but one of the big things was hiring Zabet New Collins, our program coordinator, who is specifically working on entrepreneurial ecosystem work. The second one, we brought down the beautification, which was originally we were asking for 15,000, and we actually ended up not asking for any beautification support this year, but we included it in this revised budget just to show that we will be spending $5,500. That's how much it costs us yearly to do the things that we always do. The design committee has new things that they're looking to do this year and are hopeful still to accomplish them. And we did receive $1,000 from a Build Maine grant that we wrote. So our contribution as an organization, it comes down to $4,500. The next thing, we had community events, which that came in at $12,000 earlier in the year when we submitted, and we brought that down to an ask of $10,000, but overall, all of our community events cost about $34,000 to run. So we do receive annual sponsorships and donations for them, but we're looking for support from the city for that. And then the last one is the Main Street America designation. We are asking for the city's contribution of $5,000. The program cost is roughly about $14,500, and our contribution as Heart of Ellsworth is $9,500. A lot of that money is not only for program dues, but also for the staff time, which this is a one-time expense of doing the year-long application that does, in a lot of ways, financially support and affect the city of Ellsworth and their dedication to the downtown. But really what we need to be doing right now is we'll be submitting our application in June. And then after the application is submitted at the end of this month, we go into the phase of doing a lot of marketing and advertising and getting out into the community and explaining what it means to be a Main Street community, what's in it for the downtown businesses, really getting the city excited, doing a lot of press releases, and if we have the money to be able to do some advertising in the local paper, social media, things like that, just to really get people excited for the hopeful November designation, one-time only designation for the city of Ellsworth. So let's see if I left anything out.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us what the 10,000 for the National Register nomination is?
Sure. Thank you for pointing that out. I skipped over that, at the top one. Thank you. So we started last year, we received a $15,000 grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and then we received $15,000 in sponsorship match, and we did the Historic Preservation Workshop Series. That was to tee up the concept and educating our community on the downtown being a nationally registered historic district, which is one of the next important steps for the intentional development of our downtown and the preservation of our historic buildings. So after we finished the workshop series, we then applied to the Maine SHPO office, so the State of Maine Office of Historic Preservation, for a $30,000 grant to designate the historic district, which it's such a complicated process that involves pushing an application up to the National Park Service to designate this district, that we would have to hire a consultant to do that. It's nothing that anyone can really do on their own without a preservation specialist. So we put in the grant, we put in a proposal and received a grant of $30,000. Next week, I'm supposed to get briefed from the state, sort of how that works. But we also now need to come up with another $30,000 because the application process is going to roughly cost about $60,000. So we have a line on a donor who is interested in helping us match that, but we really, the donor and pretty much anybody would want to see support from the city. So we're asking for the city to support the application process, which is going to take about 2 years, so it won't be done until 2026 probably. So, and just one other thought process on that is that $10,000 that we're asking for this year could be $5,000 this year with a promise of another $5,000 from the city in fiscal year 2026. So that could end up being, spread out over 2 years. So just a thought of a way that could be sliced.
Just, hopefully changing this to like a nonprofit section next year. This is currently in the miscellaneous portion of the budget in general government, just in case you're looking for the history, page 137. But my original cut exercise was admittedly non-scientific. I think next year, as I've previously mentioned, I'd like to do a little more of a deep dive on how we do some like public value analysis for funding social services and nonprofit groups but the previous request was at $8,250 for FY24. And then I put it at $14,000 down from the previous request, which is what what the Chamber of Commerce was at. So that's kind of how I came to that figure. So.
Cara, could you explain the benefits of getting the Main Street designation?
Sure. Right now, as an affiliate community of the Maine Downtown Center and National Main Street Organization, the city receives 1 extra point on all community development block grant applications. After November, when we are hopeful to receive the city's designation, the city will receive a total of 3 points on all applications that the city submits. So that's one thing.
How big of a difference is the 2 extra points on a community block grant?
Well, what I will say is what I always hear, which is from the choir, I will admit. But I always hear from the Maine Downtown Center and from our Board of Advisors, that's part of that, as well as from Terry Ann Ouellette, I think is her last name, who works she runs the Community Development Block Grant Program, who is also on the Board of Advisors for the Maine Downtown Center. I hear from them that oftentimes it's sort of those extra 3 points are the make or break of any application. So again, I will say I hear that from the choir. I do want to believe that it's true, but that's what I hear. The couple of other things, grant funding, in 2022 and 2023 alone, Heart of Ellsworth, roughly brought in $260,000 to the city in grant funds. And of those $260,000, they were all grants, mostly, that were tied to our accreditation as an affiliate. Once we become a Main Street, there'll be more funding opportunities that are available to us as an organization and to the city. There's a few that we've missed out on in the past few years because we're only an affiliate and they're only available to Main Street communities. Entrepreneurial support, there's a lot of things that come our way. So for example, 2 weeks ago, we had a film crew come here to downtown Ellsworth, and we went through for an entire day, and they met with about 15 different businesses, and they did stills and video footage of downtown, and they'll be back 3 more times over the course of the next year. This is a $40,000 project that came to us because of our affiliate community, and all of the footage and videos that they are amassing are then going to be taken and put onto the Main Street Maine website, which is yearly promoted and paid for by the Maine Office of Tourism and the Maine Downtown Center. And that monthly, what they do is they put out posts that sort of promote all of the 10, soon-to-be 11 Main Street communities around the state. And also, the Maine Office of Tourism uses that information and all of those promotional materials to push out advertising to sort of state, regional, and nationwide advertising campaigns that the Maine Office of Tourism is conducting. So that will get us quite a bit of publicity for our downtown and obviously for our city moving forward after that designation is accomplished. So that's marketing the city. Yeah, those are sort of the top three. Not to mention the fact that there's a staff time, there's, a staff time person and a little bit more than there's 2.5 people that are working, on the front of the city of Ellsworth, on a day-to-day basis, thinking about the downtown and working with the business owners and having that direct one-to-one contact with them.
Nancy?
Cara, questions about the events. You mentioned in your revised list, you've got July, August, October, November, December. Are these ongoing? Have you done them in prior years? Some I recognize, some I don't.
Yeah, great question. The July concert, we've done a concert before in July. We try every year to do 3 outdoor concerts that are free and open to the public. We've been successful, I think the first year we had 3, and then not since then, but we have one planned in July. It's the Hot Suppas is who the first one is. August, we just booked the Maine Outdoor Film Festival for the Parklet, so they will be coming. October, is annual Art of Ellsworth Maine Craft Weekend, which that event has happened for the past 7 years, I believe. Down East Cider and Cheese, I think has been 6 or 7, and the Holiday Marketplace we're bringing back because we now have a place to do it again. But that was something that we did I think we haven't done it now for 4 or 5 years.
Okay, I felt badly I didn't recognize that one, so.
There's a lot going on.
What will the venue be for that one?
The venue will be, I believe, 16 State Street, so it's the space that's at the end of the State Street block next to the library.
Great. I don't see Jane's Walk listed, a great chance to plug it, and Meet the Candidates isn't on your list.
Yes, the reason why those 2 things are not on there is it doesn't really cost us a lot to do Jane's Walk. I mean, it's a lot of staff time, but it doesn't, and I was trying to focus these 2, kind of
Okay.
hone and focus, and Meet the Candidates. We've been fortunate that we've had in-kind support from the city, but we've been able to find sponsorship outside of city coffers, so we have not, again, I didn't put it on there because of that. And there's other events that go on too that aren't on that list, but,
Okay, so this isn't a full list, it's just things that are relevant to the budget.
yeah, exactly.
Cara, I've seen you and also Zabet, your only other staff member, right?
Yes.
At the comprehensive plan steering committees, at a bunch of them. And also I'm seeing existing programs that have been going on for years, but also some new programs, and a lot of them reflect some of the bullet points that the steering committee put on, or, this has been discussing and will come out as being some of the tenets of the comprehensive plan. Are you designing new programs or going to be sort of changing any of the existing programs in concert with the comprehensive plan as it comes out?
Yeah, I think as the list of policies and recommendations do come out, I'm sure that document will end up informing future strategic planning of Heart of Ellsworth, but definitely yearly work plans that we do. It has been really wonderful for us to be a part of that process and to learn how city government works and to be able to be a part of making recommendations. But I think it's already sort of taught us a lot about how we have the possibility to interface with the city in the future and to be more effective. And I think that this has been a real big stepping stone and growing opportunity for our organization as we sort of tee up becoming a Main Street community. So, yeah, we definitely will be. But again, leaning in on city direction, really, how we more effectively have our work be in line with city initiatives, with staff initiatives, and just really trying to figure out how we can be more effective and positioning ourselves that way. So, great question. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the work. I mean, when the comprehensive plan comes out, we'll be able to check off some of those boxes already just because of, historic preservation projects that are ongoing in the outdoor concert series and a bunch of other stuff that you're doing, so.
Yeah, there's
Seems
also
in
been,
line.
thank you. There's also been, some talk too, with trying to align some of the events that we have, moving them around perhaps at different times of year that will match up with, city and staff initiatives. For example, last weekend, I talked to the Economic Development Director at the Outdoor Rec event about perhaps maybe next year we bring the Maine Outdoor Film Festival to be at the same time as that, so that one is supporting the other, get more people here wherever they need to be, wherever something like that needs to happen. Perhaps it's a whole weekend. But again, these ideas, they come, present them to staff, and then figure out how they work for the city. Because really, for example, the Maine Outdoor Film Festival, it's something that fell in our lap 2 weeks ago, and we were like, yes, we want to do this. And then they told us what dates they had, and we knew that we could do something in the parklet, so it happened. But we can be more intentional about these things moving forward, for sure.
Also, I think, with your question about the Main Street America, I've been participating as much as I can. I missed the last couple of meetings, but there is something about the Main Street America. I mean, it is bragging rights, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you're a city and you have a Main Street America downtown, it means something. But I've watched, like Skowhegan, with their presentations and what they're doing in that town, and part of that is coming from the help of Main Street America and the changes that they're making. And it really, if you say, what is the economic, is there an economic return on this? It's kind of like marketing. You can't put your finger on it, but you know that it's happening, and I really and truly believe that will help Ellsworth too, and not only the grants and things, which is really great, but, the resource when we're trying to figure out different things to do with the downtown, or if there are businesses that need help, the resources that you have with that Main Street America, I think definitely will make a difference for the area. Right? So.
I would just add to that, I was at the conference, the Build Maine event last week. It was in Skowhegan. And the award that was announced, Ellsworth was the only winner, and there are 300 people from Maine, from communities across the state, who all heard Ellsworth and heard that we had this award. You were able to, I think in a couple of sentences, summarize. It's for Merrill Park on Franklin Street, that half the city perhaps doesn't even know that it's there or what it's for. It was a great community effort to bring it back to life, so getting it with lights and more activity there so that it does become part of the social fabric of the downtown. And I just, as we're maybe wrapping this part up, I think it's a great strategy to support at this level, but also realizing we can split the $10,000 into 2 different years, as you are checking couch cushions for how to manage the mill rate. That's, to support with the intent that it's split over the 2 years, because that's when you'll need it. Makes a lot of sense, I think.
I think we can't designate.
We can't. I mean,
No, we
can-
would just have to say 5,000 with the intention.
With the intention of, yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
And then remember.
Charlie will still, remember, and then Charlie will still
Carl
be
will
able to say.
remember.
"Well,
I'll
not
remember."
this year."
I'll remember for you guys.
Timestamp this recording. What time was this discussion?
We have a big bag of cash out there, and once you guys finish,
Yeah.
then I just start handing. We're doing a new process.
That's gonna be so fun. That bag of cash is so fun.
I think a parade down Main Street. would
Maybe,
be great.
yeah, great.
I would love it. Cash.
What could go wrong?
So I'm just wondering, Matt, if you know if any of this would be covered under TIF, because it is economic development.
I haven't specifically gone through and looked at it.
So that would kind of be a help too.
And I think after the TIF conversation tomorrow, you might find we don't have a ton of unallocated TIF for this year, because we're
But what
moving other
about
stuff.
prior year I mean, there should be some sort of fund balance, well,
Oh, I
should
don't-
be some sort of fund balance.
Yeah, I don't know that part, yeah, for this year, how much is left.
Yeah, we've also talked, Cara and I did talk about, as I know Jana and Matt and the team are looking towards, redesign the TIF after a while. We've talked about
Yeah.
that as well. That could be part of how we think of this too, and how those TIF funds are allocated, and maybe it's a separate designated stream in this kind of work too. But, yeah, TIF will get a little more detailed next week, but we'll,
I appreciate you bringing that and highlighting that, Tammy, because, or Counselor Moat. Because oftentimes, I think, I did a survey, I was just at a director's retreat a couple of weeks ago down in Westbrook, and they did sort of a show of hands, and 50% of the 10 main streets in the state are funded through TIFs from their town. So it's a very common way for downtown organizations to be funded by their municipality. And just one more thing to highlight, just so that you guys are kind of thinking long-term about this designation as we're moving forward. We've been told numerous times through the application team that we're working with for the designation, that the only concern that presents itself right now with our application here in Ellsworth is that our budget is, or our, I guess I should say, our sources, our funding sources are really, really deeply imbalanced. So you've got 48% grants, I think currently, actually, I have it in front of me, so. It's 49% grants, 18 donations, 16% sponsorships, 12% events and ticket sales, and 4% at municipality appropriations. And really, what we truthfully should be striving for within, the next year or so is at least a verbal stating to them, we understand when they come to do their site visit in August, that we understand that this is imbalanced, we know that this is not okay, moving forward, we're gonna take steps A, B, and C to get ourselves to being more balanced. But really what they wanna see is 1/3 event revenue, 1/3 grants, sponsorships appeal, and then 1/3 of city appropriations. And that's of our total entire budget. However, they are willing to, because I also today looked up some data about where municipalities are coming in with their contributions to Main Street organizations. I think the lowest right now is at $30,000, all the way up to $150,000 from their municipalities. So we have a ways to go, I recognize that, so it's an incremental, goal of getting us there, and not all happening at once, and we're very aware of that, but just trying to give everyone benchmarks, not to scare anybody or anything, but just trying to.
Who determines those benchmarks of the third, and a third?
That is national designation, yeah, and it's best practices. I mean, and if we're not coming in there, it's gonna be fine, but we need to have some sort of plan to get neatly in a nice spot.
seems like there's agreement to keep it at this level, and we'll lock it in, go to next steps.
At this 25?
Yep.
those?
All right.
Thank you.
Cara?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Cara.
Cara.
And now we'll go with Jim from Facilities. Jim, who, two things. One, he's been a part of our, in addition to doing awesome stuff in Facilities, he's been joining our Public Works meeting and has actually been providing a lot of great kind of guidance and oversight across as we think holistically on our facilities and our Public Works processes and how we do things. I know, as previously mentioned, we've pulled beautification at his request to out of his budget, although we are doing a lot of other things, so really value that. He's also, I would say, even more of a penny pincher than I am. Maybe not as much as Steve, but it'd be pretty darn close.
Steve is the king.
So I've actually found, not just on this, but other parts of the budget and kind of how we're going, thinking about things, it's been very valuable. Facilities is at 475. This is another one in terms of structurally, I put there's some new things in here, then some changes. This is maybe more of a capital discussion in some ways, but we're gonna keep it here. Really 479 is where the manager's adjustment comes in. And there's some supporting documentation for this, but the really big one of the new manager request is a security upgrade to this facility. It's actually been okay for the last couple weeks, but I'd say, my first month and a half here, there was a lot of, security incidents, people wandering around in places of the area that they shouldn't be. We know we do have cash in this facility in some areas. Some incidents with staff where I had to be kind of called in, which is fine, but it kind of got me thinking, like, is this our sort of security plan, is to knock on the city manager's door and to de-escalate? We had a panic button that had to be called once. It wasn't, huge issue, but like, I didn't even know that panic buttons were around. How do we kind of check this? And it got me thinking, okay, there used to be a police station here with a lot of police officers and a lot of cars around here. Now that the police station is, not in the downtown area, that may be part and parcel to why we're seeing this. We're also, the homelessness issue that we're seeing, people sleeping in kind of foyers in here when employees come in the wintertime, a bunch of, so I, there's some staff into discussions with me about feeling nervous about security in the building and whatnot. So I asked our police officer, I'm realizing I should have probably had Sean here to discuss more about his recommendations to do a full review of the building, and make some recommendations. I think in some ways that's kind of one of the core things we need to provide here is people feel safe where they're at work. So he did kind of based on, and it's all outlined in the appendixes in your budget books, on physical security and safety plan and facilities upgrades. Having worked with Secret Service and a lot of presidential candidates for a while, security is always a balance between, security wanting X and, lockdown, and then public accessibility to individuals. And so it is always a balance, and something I think should be reviewed. Jim, kind of lightning fast before his vacation, took a look at the security recommendations, got some quotes about what it would be to kind of implement all of them, which is in the $60,000 area. Talking further, I think, and Jim can kind of maybe explain some of the details. Some of these things, I think maybe we could live without the year, that we could, drop it substantially, and this would be in conjunction with like what was previously discussed at the 9,000 level for the kind of rearrangement of the clerk's office, so that you can't just, wander behind the office without getting to a door, so it's also more ergonomically feasible for them. Fob keys for different locks and doors. I know this window there's constantly public walking in and out of that. It's really hard to kind of fob that door. It'd be better if staff, our finance department's back there. Others are not really public facing in some ways, so, but you open that door once and then you're trying to lock it. It's hard to keep a fob in that glass door. An upgrade to the doors on the front side of the area so that, people can't sleep there in the night. And those kind of security pieces, it's outlined in the memo on kind of what those are. I'd leave it to Jim if he's got anything else to add on security packages.
The glass doors that access the finance area and the Morris area, according to Maine Fire, can be retrofitted with the fob-type locks. So that was not included as part of the security outline from the police department, but all the other areas that they had outlined were addressed either in a best guess from a supplier contractor, or worst case scenario, best guess on my part, because very late in the season when this was thrown at us, and availability of suppliers was such that they're not available to even come look at some of the things until the end of the month, i.e. the front door, for example. So that part of the capital request is just a ballpark on my part. It could be substantially higher if they need to replace the wooden knee wall, that whole unit with the wooden knee walls and the glass uppers, because that outside door is not lockable. It's just not. With the key fob, it doesn't close most of the time. We'll be back to where we are in the rainy season with the wooden front doors. Yeah.
This is also one of those ones that I'd love to have a little more time to kind of dial in the specifics. It might be something we want to consider for potential bond or a capital project later on, and stick at maybe a little bit of a lower level, if we feel like we need to conserve for budget. And I think we also need, and I've mentioned this to staff too, is, we still need to socialize this a lot with staff on exactly what they want. I've got mixed reviews on low glass to prevent people from jumping over. We have somewhat high counters, but we are gonna have to build accessible counter, and that one might need higher glass. I know with the second floor on fobbing that area up there, so that it's, an acceptable public with, we do have a lot of interactions, on the second floor, that it is nice to be able to have that go through. So there is a piece of this too that I kind of want more time to, really go through it. But as we're in budgeting process, I wanted to kind of get it out there. There also is in the packet, there's additional recommendations on just things we'll need to do beyond just physical building security that we're looking to implement. And I won't go through every single one of them, but, protocols for if an incident were to happen, what are the safe rooms that people, kind of the incident areas that you'd want to go to if, in an emergency, some of the de-escalatory training that we previously talked about. And then there's the other piece, which is if we felt that this was the type of, if these incidents keep occurring, considering a security guard or a police officer to be here, that just kind of provides that presence. So I know that side and the kind of human security access might in some ways negate the need for some of these physical security upgrades, but that's one of the things we've been thinking about. It's yeah, that's it. I'll leave it to questions for that.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to security of City Hall and security of, safety of the staff, and other than public that are in here, I think I'm personally looking to you and the staff as saying, this is what we need. So, I guess the question is, are you, aside from how much it moves up or down the mill rate, is the 60,000 change still your recommendation, or have you changed that at all?
Yeah, I'm mixed on this one. This is kind of I thought about revising this. I almost think that we should maybe pull down to 20,000 for this cycle. And Jim and I talked about it yesterday. I'm just what can we? But it's a hard one, right? Because it's this was the recommendations from the police, and we're experts in this type of area, and the things we'd want to do to really make this facility secure. It's a recommendation. So if we don't implement it, I feel this piece. But having worked in this kind of we have, there are areas where I do feel like we need to bring down, and it almost seems like I need more time to really say, is it really going to be 60,000 for all of these pieces? And is it the recommendation on the staff or a security guard? I'm not there yet. I wish I could say I've been a little busy. I've done a bunch of things on this piece, so.
Charlie, could this be one of the things that we wait and do with the borrowing? Once you have a better plan and you have a kind of a timeline of how you can do this, and we were talking about doing a fall or a spring borrowing for these types of things, would that give you more time to get better estimates, but also to have a plan of how you're going to implement this? Because you can't, there's no way you can do all this at once in City Hall. I'd
No.
be shocked if we were able to get all this done in 1 year. But maybe you guys could get together and figure out how you're gonna do this and a timeline and things. I do agree. I do think that there also ought to be something for the council, for this room too, for some type of security too, because, if the way that people seem to be a little more passionate about items in the city, and we are sitting here in the open. I mean, there's no I can't even jump underneath the table, neither can you, there's no place to go. If someone gets violent, and there's no longer any police department here that can hear it and come through the door and help. So I think that you may want to talk to the police department about that too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, when we do these, especially, it's a really important point. I have
Do we have on-duty officers in every council meeting? 'Cause I know there used to be last year, but it seems.
We would ask them to come to some if we knew something was going to happen, but it was always a little comforting that they were right there.
Yeah.
And they had a door that they could come through quickly if they heard anything, if anything was
I do
happening.
feel like there's a panic button somewhere under here.
There used to be,
Yeah.
but there's, so I think that ought to be
Just gonna
included
hide
in
that.
this.
Maybe we could just buy you a taser?
Unfortunately, the panic buttons aren't as effective as they once were. Police department's not here now, so the response time is, you know, by the time you push the panic button, we had an incident where it was actually used. Turned out to be not that bad, but it took 15 minutes for them to get here.
The way it works now is the button still goes to dispatch, but it's just like a normal call where, you know, Troy or Sean's not right here to walk over and see what's happening. It goes into the normal queue, so if the patrol officers are dealing with something outside of City Hall, they finish dealing with that and then head to City Hall.
Depending on.
Yeah,
the
maybe,
severity.
Maybe we should have an officer here for each meeting. Something to look at.
Just a balance in the conversation. I'm not here to say that I'm against any of this, but when this police department move thing come up, they were touting that they were still gonna have a small office in City Hall with some presence. They were touting that during that process. And secondly, if you walk into banks today, they're much less secure than they once were. Why are the banks doing it that way? If you notice that they have these work islands now, it used to be that they were all boxed in with locks to reach over and unlock, but yet you go to most of the banks now have open oval type workstations that you could walk right in behind nothing. There must be some data that allows that or that people are comfortable with. Just walk into, even older banks, like my wife and I walked into the First in Bar Harbor, and they've got these new islands everywhere, that there's no security, you could walk right in behind. There must be some data that, or some purpose behind that, I don't understand it, but it's much more customer friendly than it once was, which contradicts what we're talking about.
Might be helpful to look at other city halls, other town halls, city halls, Bar Harbor, Bucksport, see what they're doing, see what issues they have
yeah,
as a comparison.
yeah, I
See
think
if they've
that's,
changed anything in the last few years.
I think that's a good idea, to just, or where are they at, where are their, you know, are they seeing the same kind of increased activity? Is Ellsworth unique? Because we kind of went from, a lot of police presence. And I think some of the difference, I think the other piece of it is like we have conflict-prone interactions a lot. Not that banks wouldn't if somebody's trying to rob the bank, but, you know, I think what's the kind of a difference maker with City Hall is, and it seems to be of a different tone, to your point, Michelle, a different, I've seen it, you know, sometimes. To be honest, it has been helpful. I'm fortunate that there's a big Science and City Manager off, because, you know, I think a lot of people hey, I really want to, and one side get to them, and hey, they see the city manager sign, like, it de-escalates quick. And because they're like, all right, I'm finally talking to the right person, you know, and they might not get the best answer that they want, it might be probably usually is the exact same as our dedicated staff, but that's been helpful, but, you know, I'm not always there. And trying to think of how other city halls do it, and it's always the thing with comps for Ellsworth too, very difficult, like, Bangor's so much bigger, so if they have an officer and they have this, so, you know, they also have a lot more but at least having that data, and I even had Tony, when she went to the RMV, DMV, whatever, it's like, what do they have there? And they're fully glassed, and another very conflict-prone interactions, right?
Yeah, exactly, people get heated in there.
So, yeah, I looked at the pictures there, I was like, wow, but it's also sterile, and no offense to our workers over there, but
Well, I
yeah.
think it's different. I think that to your point, that it's hard because these are people that we live among. You know, these are a lot of people that come in here, are friends, that people that come in a lot, and so it's hard to be sterile and you know, completely boxed away from people, because the whole point of local government is to be close to the people, right? And
Right.
so it is difficult to find that balance, but there is people you're right, it's a different tone. I mean, we've always had people that would come into City Hall and make you nervous, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And we just kind of dealt with the situation, and especially in the summertime, it happened a lot. But it is a different tone now, and there is a responsibility to the staff, absolutely. So, but we just need to find that balance. And, you know, and if you feel like $20,000 will get it started, and then we can figure out the rest later, I mean, that's, you know, respect the opinion on that. But I would like to see a plan.
Yeah, that's, maybe Jim and I will circle back, it might be 16.5, it might be 24.6, but what are like the real, maybe we'll talk to Sean too, and what's the ones we should do right now, plus implementing a lot of the like, hardening of the building pieces, and then let's do a little bit of review, you know, I thought of some things tonight, yeah, maybe there's getting a officer here during some of the council meetings going forward, that, you know, that's probably something we should start doing, and thinking about those things, maybe even talking to staff about what they feel, getting a little more diagnostic. Again, this was pretty quick, but I wanted to act on it while we're in budget season and talking about it, so.
No, I don't blame you, I don't blame you. Jim's gonna be busy with his fire department and safety and painting outside and.
There's one other, it was nice to have Jim back, because he makes, yeah, kind of a lot of things, like, oh, I was thinking about this, but you didn't realize this. One that's not mentioned here, but it will be in the final budget, we'll talk about in ARPA a bit, is a power upgrade to the fire station based on the new ventilation system. I'm not, you know, it will increase the cost of that. In some ways, like, they're already tripping breakers, I think, on occasion, or not yet, okay, but this will start tripping the breakers.
What's that?
The ventilation system,
Well,
or the need for the power.
their contract, I talked to Scott about it today, because like I explained to you, it was just a happenstance that I was putting this in not for the ventilation system, but for the fire trucks, because the fire trucks are the ones that are kicking the breakers, so they're onboard air pumps are, you know, so the air's bleeding down, as I explained earlier, on the truck, so it's delaying their response. But just by happenstance, I put this in this year, the same time that Scott brought back the ventilation system. And the ventilation system is not part of the, the electric is not part of the quote for the ventilation system. So, without funding this, or the upgrades to the power, we would have to run a line at city cost all the way to the back of the sub-panel that, or the panel that we were gonna pull the main trunk line off of this power upgrade to a sub-panel, which would be on the generator and all of that, which would feed all the drops for the fire truck, so they would be to code with individual circuits for each individual truck, and still have space for the power to feed that ventilation system. Kind of half a dozen one, dozen the other, but the cost of running a line from that sub-panel to the ventilation system is far less than if they had to run a separate line all the way back through the brick wall, because now you're boring a hole in the wall just for that one line, whereas before we're gonna bore a hole through that brick wall to run the trunk line out to the sub-panel. So that cost would be way cheaper for just the ventilation system tie-in than if we ran a standalone line out back to the electrical one.
So yeah, a little bit of that we think we can probably cover in ARPA, not the entire expense, but it seems like they're gonna need that new panel for the fire department, so.
Scott and I talked about it, and I talked to the electrician, and I think between what he's got in one of his budget lines, and the electrician just kind of gave me a range, and I went a couple $1,000s higher, because we've been burned in the past with guesstimations from contractors, and then actually put it out to bid, and it's like twice what guesstimations that I was given. So I added a couple thousand extra in there just for in case, and I think that we should be fine with being able to tie that trunk line from the sub panel to the ventilation system without any additional need for funds of any kind.
But take it out of the budget.
Hmm?
Take it out of the budget.
Take it out of the budget? What do you
Is
mean?
that what you're saying? You don't need any more.
You don't need
funds?
you don't need to pay.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to add anything else
Okay.
into the budget to power that ventilation system,
Okay.
other than what's already been requested.
Oh, so that,
Oh, off the
so the
side.
panel is not, we don't need that anymore. We can
Pardon?
drop the new the new power.
No, we need the new power.
Oh, that-
You just
still
don't
Yeah.
need to have more money for the new power for the ventilation system that
Correct.
wasn't budgeted.
Correct.
Okay.
What's already been asked for the electricity upgrade and the ventilation system, and what we have, like, in my maintenance budget, what he has a few $1,000s in this maintenance line, more than adequate to run from that sub panel to the ventilation system tied together, especially if we tie it all together at the same time.
Excited for a second. Got excited for a second.
I know, I told Scott today that you were excited to think that we were gonna install the ventilation system with no power.
I thought it'd be funny.
It was just kinda happenstance that it all came together at the same time, and it's like,
That's too
wow,
funny.
I got lucky there.
I want to jump back. I had two questions on the security update that we were talking about. Page 493 is a memo about firearms in municipal buildings. 494, reading statute, so your eyes glaze over pretty quick. But it says municipalities in Maine cannot prohibit firearms in buildings. But towards the end of it, it says, we should also note that a valid permit is required for concealed carry. And last I recall, that was undone.
It's a constitutional right to carry.
Right to carry, yes, but the concealed carry permit was in place, and then it was undone sometime around 2010, 2012, I thought. It says the memo was written 2014. So just so that when people are dealing with, there's carry and then there's concealed carry, this is saying that you're required to have a permit for concealed carry. I don't think that's the case anymore, that during the LePage administration, that was undone. I don't remember that it's been put back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure unless you cross state lines, when you don't need a permit within the state of Maine because it's a constitutional right to carry. But I'll triple
So
check.
again, we could argue those, there's carry, yes, concealed carry is different. I just want to be clear, when staff is working with people here, they would think that concealed carry would require a permit, and I don't think that's the case anymore.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
So we need, and it says here the memo was 2014, so just
Outdated.
know that on 494, that appears to be out-of-date information.
I think one of the, I mean, I don't know if that's the I'll talk to Sean. I think you said that the permit isn't required. I think the reason the memo's there, could be wrong, was just the piece on that, being a municipality, unlike the federal government, doesn't invalidate, which is mentioned here a few times, that doesn't invalidate somebody's right to carry, so they're unlike a federal building. That was like
Right.
the key part of this memo that I don't think it was, but I'll double check with
But
them.
if it's in here, people are gonna read it and say, well, look, it says here. So it should be correct if it's in here. And again, it's the third paragraph from the bottom. We should also note a valid permit is required
Yep, I'll
for concealed carry, which is different.
I'll get an
So-
update to the memo to this.
Okay.
Just to maybe make a note that this piece of it has since changed. And
Okay.
again, I can't be 100%, I probably should have brought Sean in here, but I think, yeah, the reason it's
No, that's all
included
right,
is
we
that.
can follow it up later. The other piece is, I was intrigued by what Steve said about when the police station moved. There was reference to they would continue to have a presence here in the city hall. I'd like to know what that was and how that plays into what we're talking about for security here. Not at this moment, but it would be a request to go out as we're looking at how to manage this.
I've been told that before, but I wasn't here when, so but I have heard that before.
If I could speak to it without losing my cool,
That's on you, Steve, that's your job.
about that subject, I think that was part of the sales pitch when they were trying to lease the building and spend the money to rebuild, that there would be a presence in City Hall, still with a small office. I recall it being part of the sales pitch when they were trying to push that through. That's the only thing I remember about that they were pitching the former police chief that there still would be a presence here with a small office at City Hall with a police presence. But it was only during that pitch in October that I heard that. And probably others have heard it as well. Casey would remember.
I just don't remember that part, yeah.
No, you don't.
I mean, I believe you, but I just
Yeah.
don't remember it.
Try and pull minutes. And
It doesn't, the results of the
results the
same
same,
today, it doesn't really matter. but
Unless the
there-
council voted for it to.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
hear
think it was
you.
that specific.
Yeah, it was just, it was during the conversation part.
Well, if it was an offer made, and if we're finding we need something, it just seems like that's a good alignment and good background information to have. So,
It would have been probably that October meeting.
So Maine
If it's in
became
those-
permitless carry October 15th of 2015.
oh, is that late?
Say it
Okay,
again?
to 2015.
October 15th, 2015, so at the time of this
Okay.
memo, it was correct, but it was rescinded
It's a
October
10-year-old
15th,
memo, we need to,
2015, Right?
let's.
And that was 9 years ago,
So
yeah.
you do not need a
Yeah.
permit
Not on the
For
survey,
concealed
but
carry.
just
for a
staff with
concealed
security
to carry gun
stuff.
without
Everyone
showing.
kind of listing out your ideas of what gets added.
Municipality,
Level
municipal
priority
buildings
highest.
can't prohibit people from their firearms.
Yeah,
So you're for-
I think that's,
What's the opposite
and
of
what,
concealed
yeah,
carry?
what they would prefer to see, and maybe get a little bit of qualitative
The
information.
cabinet
for that.
vehicle.
You know, and if they're saying we'd like to really see a security guard here. And again, could, oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
I
you.
don't know.
Well, I was just gonna say,
Can you?
was that
open to
information that we should hear? I couldn't.
I was
Yep.
saying, pitching the idea that we could make like
Can
a
we-
anonymous survey for city hall staff to do like a ranking of like the ideas for security upgrades and then which
Security
ones they
open
think are
emergency.
priority versus are not, and then that can inform Charlie's decision on what.
Or maybe flip it, like, what are they most concerned about, rather than which of these solutions do you want? It's like, what are the problems, and then the solution part would be, there are people who do that for a living.
No, I-
You know, are they concerned about 5 different things that either have or could go wrong? And then we know how to prioritize the investments that are made.
I know you don't want to keep talking about it forever, but it's just, once it gets in your head, you can't stop thinking about it. So we think about it at the health center all the time, because we have people usually who are sick and vulnerable, and also often not with good mental health. One thing that occurs to me just over the episodes that we've had over the years is just wanting to make a plug for de-escalation as being really important, because I think there's the way I think of it is there's 2 things. There's someone who has made a plan to come in here and kill us. That's one kind of thing that we're trying to mitigate, really rare, but really bad. And then there's the thing I think that happens all the time, which is just the person who is frustrated and heated, where, you know, and this is what we get at Trenton Health Center, I'm going to get my shotgun and I'm coming back here, like that kind of stuff, where they actually, de-escalation does actually work for that kind of stuff. And I know we keep thinking about it at the clinic, it's the same problem. Most of the incidents that we come into, you can look back and be like, it didn't actually need to go that way.
Right, and there's, in this, I can't believe you all haven't read through this entire thing that I just told you to.
I can't remember, we've read it all, but then we can't
The,
remember. What
there's
we remember.
the verbal judo, I think, kind of.
Yeah, right. Yes, and I saw that in there, and I don't know anything about verbal
That might be in like a
whether it's-
mandatory, it was kind of some places where the organization were going, but maybe.
And it came up before, I just was putting my plug for
Yeah.
putting efforts in that direction.
I also remember a couple of times, maybe even Michelle, but, like the police would come in and meet with all of City Hall staff and just like, you know, fight, or freeze concepts and how to handle these different situations. So that may be something we could get back into as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Calvin did one of them for us. And probably several. But yeah, I agree with de-escalation. You know, I think if you look at statistics, it's a very high percentage of incidents could have been handled with de-escalation rather than fear. So, and verbal judo, actually, I know the person, well, she used to give it, I'm not sure she still does, but it's a great class that MMA provides.
Yeah.
Really great class.
It just sounds, its name is aggressive, but I assume is not aggressive.
You obviously do not study Judah.
I was just gonna say,
Because it's
judo
very,
is
it's
not
defense,
aggressive.
it's not
Yeah.
offense, it's defense. It's actually really.
Like, I'd go for verbal compassion or true love for all.
We will have
That's great, so you got a person hollering at you.
How about just verbal bouquet?
Yeah, like verbal
I like that. Just to throw out one more thing about that, whether it's a concealed weapon, not a concealed weapon, back when they required a license, there's a lot of people carrying before, when they needed concealed weapons permits, that were smart enough to carry and keep their mouth shut.
Right? But there was a reason that you carried one, and it wasn't usually for anything
Right,
other than.
and so there's
going
many
in the woods, or
people
my husband does.
carrying
He has a
weapons
pistol that he takes
that
when he goes in the woods and stuff.
would never exhibit the weapon, but carry the weapon, and wouldn't be a threat, and you may face them every day at City Hall that you don't even know about. And those people don't want to exhibit that, but they want to carry for security. And I think that's happening more and more in this world. And so regardless of licensing, unlicensing, there's many people carrying self-defense properties with them that you're not going to know about. And thankfully, you don't know about it.
Yep. All right, we're gonna go, just to move things along, though I'm glad we got these ones, like trying to front load a bit of the staff ones, so that we don't have to keep everybody here as long, but we'll go to facilities miscellaneous properties budget 483, which is a couple pages down.
So is this that we got tonight a complete, I'm trying to figure out what's redundant, what's
I
additional,
think it
what's
might be actually
replacement?
redundant. I think I thought it was an engineer, and it is.
Did you say?
We're going to 483, but that was at, all the memo packets are at the end.
Yeah,
of the
we already
facilities.
have.
I think they're already in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one,
Okay.
I think this is a repeat of what we
And
had.
this
Not
is-
that I
You
don't
might have a
love
couple
paper.
of them, I don't know if all of them are in there.
Okay.
So I just printed all of them out that Jim had.
Thank
so.
you. I'll stick it in here just in case I need it.
And thank you, Nate. I know it's been paper shuffle.
God love you.
It's gross. We're getting better, and at the end of tonight, I'm going to talk about kind of next steps, because we are, there is the online version of the budget, which is 2 weeks ago. There's plenty of changes and logs in there, but we might re-update at some point, because we're getting pretty close to a lot of the big ones, the online version, just so you can be like, okay, this is in here now, and for the public and for everybody else, as we get closer to date, there's no reason not to put the most up-to-date in there. But as we especially get to the final round, do we want to update everybody's books and kind of here's the log? Do we want to save some printing dollars and put it up? But we can discuss that a little later as we go down the line. So 483 on miscellaneous properties budget. This one's fairly straightforward from the manager adjust summary, just reducing the radio tower line to 0. So we're going to capture this in more of a 5-year capital plan. I think Jim and I talked, we probably can't get that done right away on the tower.
No.
Anyways, even if, so, it's not budget for it necessarily this year, it could be maybe as in a bond consideration for a capital request, so we're gonna keep that on the books. If you go to 484, 485, we've got the other miscellaneous property pieces, which I have no changes to. I know, Jim, you do have a bit of an update in the Knowlton playground. I don't know if you want to give that to council now, just to, because there's been so much interest in the playground equipment, but I know you're doing some work on that over the next few weeks with the.
Oh, as far as the playground equipment?
Yep.
So, yeah, we have contracted with a representative from Game Time, I think is the name of the company. He is authorized, probably you've all read the different emails, he is authorized to do the retrofit of the slide that we bought last year that's not a direct replacement. I couldn't install it because I'm not an authorized installer. MMA wouldn't cover the liability of it, which makes sense. So he hopefully is going to be here next week. I had an email from him today. I still have money in the budget to pay for that. And then, so he's gonna do the slide that we currently already possess. He's gonna install that again, hopefully next week. And then he's also, while he's here, he's going to do a maintenance and a inspection of the complete. MMA came in and did inspection. And I thought for $500, why not have the expert go through it? And then he can give me a list of defects that are immediate or, long-term, the overall equipment condition. This is my opinion, which is just my opinion. He's the expert. I digress to him. MMA did address some issues with links on swings that were worn, in their opinion, excessively. Some other little things like that, other than, the major thing, like the chain ladder was busted, but I think they had it right. Somebody found one that's stainless steel instead of latex coated. Just getting back, I haven't had a chance to dig through the books to see if we've got money to cover that, or we gotta wait till July 1st, a new budget. But either way, that's something that I can install, we save money on that. That's not a big deal, again, that's a direct replacement type deal. What Chad told me was the set itself is called a Bigfoot set, manufactured by Game Time, right? And it's no longer in production, hence the problem we have. So the second slide that's busted is a kiddie slide. You're all probably aware of it. It's a molded 3-unit slide. The center slide has been busted. There's a big crack and a hole in it. UV light, plastic, 20 years. Talking with Chad, that unit's no longer in production. There is no direct replacement slide kit for it. However, he thinks, and he's going to let me know when he does his inspection, there may be a 2-slide unit that can be modified to fit that space. That space has 3 ports of entry. We probably, or he probably will have to do some sort of modification to that so that there's only 2 ports of entry. But other than that, I think we're cooking with gas, more or less, Things are starting to happen finally.
That's very cool.
Thank you so
Nice,
much.
thank you.
No, thank me,
Thank you.
thank Eric, he did all the legwork, he found all the, I really didn't know who to talk to, we talked to Game Time, they weren't a lot of help at all.
Eric's the
But,
chair of Rec Commission.
Yeah, no, he did all the down and dirty, and, yeah, great, great he's around.
Cool.
So we'll keep you updated on the progress of that and what the other options are. And then I think, again, as we had a gentleman today actually stop in that wants potentially to fundraise for something for Knowlton Park if need be. And again, could be considered part of future bonding, but looking forward to getting that slide replaced. And it's such an active place in the community too, so.
That whole playground, I think you said at our last Rec Commission meeting, has a useful life of somewhere near 20 years, and it's now 20 years old.
I don't think it's actually 20 years.
It's not 20
Without
years
looking
old.
back at some of the dates, it's probably closer to 10, maybe about that.
Huh?
I was gonna say, we moved here when my daughter was 3, and it was a few years after we got here, so maybe it was 15
Yeah,
in that neck of the
like that.
woods, yeah.
It was, the park was created after I left, so the park itself is only about 8 years old.
The park was finished, I think, in 2015 or 2016.
It has to be 2016.
Okay.
And then,
But there was an
playground was
existing
right before
playground at
that.
that time, and then so that existing playground has now been replaced with what's there now, and I couldn't find a date for when that new playground got put in. But it was after 2016.
So it's not that old.
But-
What they were going back, when you go back 20 years, you're going back to the Jump 2 playground that we redid. We did a fundraiser and we did the wooden one.
Right.
And then you go back another 10 years and you get the first wooden one. So, yeah, so it's.
25,000 in reserve funding for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a metal playground set that's baked enamel latex coated, so all the metal pieces are not rusted, they're all held up well. It may just be a matter of the plastic pieces, the slides, that need to be replaced due to the UV exposure and just use. But I think the main structure of itself is fine, but again, when Chad gets here, he's the expert, I digress to his opinion and what he thinks, and then I'll bring that to you all.
So, because my question was, somewhere in City Hall is the whole Game Time purchase We had a big file on it, because it was the city and the school department working together on that. But it seemed like there was a 10-year warranty on that equipment. That's why I keep asking how old it is, because some of it should have been under warranty. Chad.
Yeah, we
Maybe
can.
Chad will know.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
but
back
that's
at
what
all the
actually,
pictures to
it's
see
on my
where-
list here, of
when
like,
we took a picture
thinking
of
about
it.
next year and thinking about is file storage and
Jack
asbestos.
Turcott was here at that
Um,
time.
You know,
So you're thinking, Tammy, that that
I mean, I
set's
guess that was the old-
less than 10 years old?
Yeah, that is.
I don't, I think it is 10 years old.
Oh.
So we might be past it, but I just thought it might be something,
Worth
that you
checking.
can use as leverage on some
Mm.
of this. I don't know. It's been a while, I can't remember.
Too much to remember.
Yeah, but I just think it'd be worth looking into.
Might be an old public works, that piece that had.
any other questions on Jim's facility? I know you've already had somewhat of a chance to look at this, but everything else was pretty much either down or where it's at, so I had no other manager's requests on that.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, no problem. I had one question though, just looking at, I don't have this, I just have what I submitted. Are we talking on the Moore Center that you increased it, decreased it? Decreased it to this amount?
No, that's the same. You requested 19,742, and Charlie kept it at
No, I requested 8,500.
That's down below.
More properties.
More community
more
centers that
property.
doubled up?
Where?
More property.
Oh,
right there.
okay, yeah, 8,500.
Do
More
not have
community
a more
centers
community
that
center
double?
one.
That's the one, okay, I was looking at the wrong one. What's this one here?
Why is there two? Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
I only have one, which is 52093. 52093, that's not even right, the same number that I had. Oh, wait a minute, no, these are the old numbers, 'cause this was before everything changed out, but yeah, okay, so that's fine, that's what I had requested, because,
Let's circle up on the more community centers, I'm not quite sure more property and more community center, I'm assuming it's the same thing.
it should be two different things, because all the expenses for the Moore Center, now that we've gotten the utilities and things straightened
Oh,
out.
that's what that is.
Moore Community Center?
Yeah.
No, no, that is not AP, what does she call it? Where the stuff that comes in, the utilities and things that she bills out, Deb bills out to the Y, and then when the Y pays it, it goes into a separate account that I don't have anything to
Okay.
do with.
Should be just,
So the Moore Community Center should be just repairs and maintenance, whereas in the past, we've been paying all the utilities and, you know, some stuff has fallen through the cracks, and that's why it's way overspent. And we finally gotten a handle on that and straightened around.
All right, let's,
But other than
see
that,
me,
no.
Yeah.
see me circle back.
I don't know what the Moore Community Center number is.
it's a weird number too. It's not like it's an even number.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also have a question about the North Ellsworth Tower. I don't, was that just for upgrades? Because I always thought that we had to pay electricity and there were other maintenance-related items that we needed to pay for, so that's why there was money in that North Ellsworth Tower.
Well, originally, when I guess we never circled back to that, Charlie, because when I originally submitted this way back when, we were gonna encumber the remaining balance that was in that account, $9,800 or something like that.
Okay.
And then, that's why I submitted a request of zero, because that would have been plenty. And then, you know, we talked about no encumbrances and things like that, and then, a bond issue, a bond type deal to take care of the tower maintenance itself, because
Right.
that's gonna be probably a year or two down the road, once we get a contractor to give us a price, but, I don't think that the power and stuff comes out of that line, because currently there's like 99,000, you have that, what the current account balance is on that?
I don't have the current, but I'm thinking IT might pay the power.
I think IT pays the power.
That, or is that the, like the repeater type of thing?
Yeah, that's
for-
the fire-
That might come out of the police department's budget.
Yeah, See,
So
I
that might be
Dispatch,
why
maybe
it
it's
zeroed
dispatch.
there.
Yeah, Could be dispatch.
I think it's
Dispatch,
just
something. I
maintenance and-
remember,
I'll put it on my list.
okay.
I'll flag it down that we're at least accounting for it, or it's accounted somewhere.
Yeah, 'cause I'm pretty sure-
That one was specific to, there's an inspection on it, and it needs to be done right now, but we need to think about this, and so that's why it was decreased to zero, but I want to make sure that like, the tower power is being paid for.
Yeah, no, I don't believe any
Just
utilities.
wanted to say that.
I don't believe any utilities come out of that line, because it was just a maintenance line that we drew out when I redid the roof up there and some exterior things and that sort of deal.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On SK Whiting Park, is that $650 just for the flowers?
No, that's for the clock maintenance. I think that budget has always been $250. I haven't done much up there because I didn't know a whole lot about the clock, and what's his name, this fireman was a councilman. Yes, so he and I had a long talk earlier this year, and he was explaining to me about the maintenance that, I guess that's kind of his deal, that clock, and he said he's getting up there and needs to pass the torch. But there is a company that does a yearly maintenance thing to it, and part of that, lawn treatments, new land lawn, Glenn had asked that the different areas that get treated, it used to be all come out of parks and planting. He wanted it broken down so that SK, because it's billed separately, SK Whiting gets a bill, Demeyers Field gets a bill, City Hall gets a bill. So he wanted it broken out so that it reflected accurately what the actual expenses were. So that increase was to cover that $200 or $250 that's always budgeted for the park maintenance, or the clock maintenance, and any other little doodads that may be needed there. And then the actual expenses of weed control, grub control, fertilization, the lawn type stuff.
Would it be possible to add a little bit of money in there to have those bricks at least washed and cleaned out? Because those bricks are all memorials. People donated those and paid money.
Around
Around the clock and on those grounds, those
Yeah.
bricks. Those are all, if you look at those, they're all memorials. I mean, my family put a bunch of, people paid to have memorial bricks put on there.
Mhm.
You can't even read them anymore because
really?
they're so covered in
Moss and mold
moss and
and-
things. So it would be really nice if we could just add some and get that cleaned up so you could at least see the bricks.
That's, I think I can take care of that within the existing budget.
Okay.
We have a pressure washer that I now take care of the concrete pad, splash pad, because of the cost of what it took and the time delay to get, like J.R. Anderson or somebody to come up there once that starts to slime up. So, if I can access water spigot there, which I must be able to do somewhere, what are we funny about?
It's the slime.
Slime in
The
that.
slime in the kiddie pool.
Slime in the kiddie pool, slime in the splash pad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Kids are good.
So anyway, I can use that same system that I use up
Built-in
there, it just runs
systems,
off a
it's
garden hose and electricity.
Okay.
And if I can't access electricity there, you know, the highway, water, somebody has a small generator, I can access that, and I can take care
That
of
vac
that.
truck
There
could
is
do a
actually
quick
power
job.
there
Vac
for
Is
the
it?
trees.
You can
Is
suck
that
out
what-
so much
They're on
slime
the
with
Vac
that thing.
truck it real quick.
Is that not something that
What's that?
the fire department could do, the fire truck?
It might be too much, it might take those bricks right out.
Yeah, no, that's,
You have to be careful.
As long as I get the trash.
that's what blowing
You sound
creosote
like
up through the
Everett.
chimney
He
and
would do
stuff,
the
not
same
for
thing. Let me
washing
have a
bricks.
fire hose.
Yeah, no, that's something I can take care of that in-house, that's
Oh,
not,
that would be great, thank you.
that's,
I think
I
SK
wasn't
Whiting
aware,
is-
I'm sorry.
The flowers are part of the beautification piece and the.
Yeah, the
collections
flowers
there.
all
It's a
part of the.
beautiful spot, and it really is, if you go in there and you look at, you know, in memory of so-and-so, it really is, it's a very nice spot.
Yeah.
I know it's
I've never
kind of
actually seen
a
anyone sitting.
loud,
It's loud.
Was that the,
exhaust-filled area.
was that the $50 a brick through
Yeah.
Cole Museum?
No, this was a
No way.
fundraiser when Dunkin' Donuts was taken out. It
Mhm.
was a fundraiser to do something with that property to make it a prettier entrance to High Street. It was when we did a beautification of High Street.
The bricks themselves though?
The bricks themselves were sold, I think it was like $50 a brick.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we had them engraved and.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Jim.
Is it?
Thank
Any other
you.
questions?
Well, you're giving you more work, Jim.
Yeah.
Hey, I gave away something yesterday, I think.
Oh, there we go.
So I got 10 minutes extra.
I was gonna say, you got extra time now, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Thomas
switch.
doesn't.
We can switch gears. I'm hoping we can knock some of these ones out. This is kind of the final rundown of some of this. Like, we'll go to Kobe, 53, the city-owned broadband infrastructure.
What's the number?
Page 53.
Oh, wow, back to the beginning.
Yeah, we can go to the beginning, and then we'll do my blue tabs, which is
Good night.
Thank you.
Oh, you were almost as many steps.
almost. I had the question. I was like, where are we at in the Tammy tabs? I think we got most of them. So we managed to circle up Tammy. There's a few other things. So I have no changes or adjustments here. I think Kobe revenue, I think they were hoping to get a little more than they've gotten, but as kind of with our IT team, I guess this is one of the many surprises is that we run, city-owned broadband infrastructure, that we actually have that kind of stuff and what they're doing. They just, such amazing stuff. I keep telling, Nate's in there right now, and I was thinking of, can he like talk to us, like God in there? Just, so that happened to come out.
Back mic?
Yeah.
I bet he has one in there.
Maybe.
Set it up.
But if we need any other questions from him, he can pop out, but this one was pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions on Kobe?
Can you just explain negative revenue?
Negative revenue.
Yeah, front page, revenue -8. Or is it
No,
8,000
revenue is
and you're doing
considered
the
a
math?
credit, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking straight across, okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Less the revenue.
Rest of the revenue. If we're good there, we're gonna switch to tax budget at 169. This one's another pretty straightforward one.
Can I ask a question on I'm back at the Kobe. Isn't that just that one little building down by the harbor?
Well, the building houses a lot of the hardware, but the infrastructure itself spreads across this, I think it's 3 miles. Nate might know better, but
Yeah, we can't.
So, but that insurance is $10,000 for that?
well, I think this the hardware that's running out of the building too, that connects the city facilities is
Oh, okay.
expensive to insure, just the broadband infrastructure.
Is it scalable? Will it grow? Will it continue to?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think the idea was that a lot of people would be patching into it and then using that, and that there would be revenue for that. At least that's what I talked with Jason about today, because I was like, I'm gonna try and get smart fast on Kobe and failed miserably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then you get Fidium that comes in with,
Or the private sector kind of came in
yeah,
and took care of it.
took care of it, yeah.
We leased to some private sector.
Nope.
Riva.net.
I have to apologize, I didn't mean to call you Tammy, my wife just told me that I screwed up. May or may not have offended.
Oh, man, I've been called worse, so that's okay.
You know you just called Michelle Tammy. I did. Okay.
That's great, thanks.
It's so funny.
So on to tax, 169. This one I just, no big changes, just the 20% cut to the office supplies, travel, and training. Just sort of a general recommendation throughout, but this budget was pretty straightforward. I would also mention, as I talked about here, with, that we've pulled actuals from everybody now and for every department, and the one thing we still have to do is, we're gonna go through on kind of what budgeted versus actuals. I've already spot checked a couple, and there are variations in what people were pulling from previous technology accounts, and, and making this like totally to actuals. So, we're doing that for every single one, but that's still in progress, so.
So you have, so the lien, costs, revenue, and the interest revenue, that was one of my little Tammy notes.
Yeah, I
Tammy
think I got those in there. They're not.
Are they in there?
No, it doesn't show there.
All right, well, then we need to.
I'll double check.
Because that should be pretty significant, probably 125,000
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
in revenue.
I saw your note. I thought I took care of it, but I'll look.
Okay.
It's a Tammy note.
Tammy tab, that's what he calls it.
Tammy tabs.
Those Tammy
Both
tabs.
is basically all tabs.
They're
Knew Nate
important.
was gonna come in and do this, probably
All right, I'm
spreadsheet.
picking up. I believe that's in 10,000. It's not in 10,135.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So FYI. So they're
Oh,
different
so
things.
it's just in regular
Yeah, it's
revenue?
with like all the like how your receivable accounts, I think that's all in 10 triple zero, if I remember right, or somewhere in those bounds, so.
Nate, you gotta
Yep.
speak into the microphone.
Let me guess.
Say it again for everybody.
The tax isn't funding the tax.
He wants the booming voice from above thing.
Yeah,
That's what he wants.
I love this team. It's just good to have such
I
brains
can't,
on this.
where would you
problem,
find
so.
10 triple zero?
So it'd probably be page 18 for, 10 would be the fund, and then
Although it might not be in here, it might be in,
revenue side, just right.
or in the most updated online budget book that we're working
Okay.
on.
Oh,
What is it?
okay.
Should we be considering both together? I mean, as the taxes coming in aren't funding the tax department? Is that what
So go
you're-
to the top,
Hmm.
please, all the way to the top. Right there, okay, so interest and lien notice costs. Okay, it did go in there.
Is the appropriate level, or do you think? Oh, that's about what you.
Lien cost notice seems low, but that's okay. Because before it was like, used to be 45. Be interested to see what it was.
And next year is kind
prior
of a, like, I'm hoping to see like 846, you know.
Not just random.
Like-
I think I was just
Round
using
numbers.
That's,
24
yeah.
actuals.
years. Okay.
I can look at it again.
But to your point, John, on, yeah, and like, why do we have some that hold revenue there, and then, you know, we show it in their departments, if it's relative to their department? For example, like, we talked last week about the water protection, or what was the name of it?
Watershed protection.
Watershed protection, and like, they don't have revenues, and talked to John Whedon, and he's got a breakdown of what the revenues actually are, so like, we wouldn't maybe include it there, but what's the difference between that and the tax, you know? Some formatting stuff, I think, that to keep in mind for next time around. so.
Yeah, it looks like some numbering just needs to be adjusted.
Because it makes it harder, like, you either should do it all one way, and then you can see it, and then capture it, but make sure it's not double captured. You know, I feel like there's been some of that throughout this process. So we'll double confirm on that piece, but maybe for next year's one, we'll make it a little more consistent. That's it for tax. If any more questions, we'll go to technology budget, which is 175. This one, in addition to my manager adjustment summary I'll review, it was double stamped. When I say Jim helps me on other things, he's usually a Henry Pincher, but he mentioned all the stuff Nate's been doing on the budget and said, this guy deserves a titling upgrade and a salary increase. And I said, check out the manager's adjustment summary. You know, Nate's doing a lot, both on this project for the budget, but also I think continuing on is going to be really needed on just so many different things. He already is on, you know, he's a critical dependency for the organization. I also have a titling change that he has kind of a confusing technology systems assistant administrator. I think just the deputy technology systems administrator. We've also talked about maybe rebranding that department about, I don't think we need to talk about that too much in this department or this budget process, but I feel like, you know, Office of Technology and Security Services or Office of Digital Services, it's like, it feels like it doesn't encapsulate right now that it's IT. IT is kind of one function of incredible amount, as we've already seen in this process. So that is my direct request on this one, as well as a 5% increase to Jason, who's, again, he also covers an incredible amount of things over there. And then the last bit, and Jason and Nate, I think, are going to be helpful to a lot of future initiatives on digitization, branding, technology. There's a lot of projects in my backlog that they were going to be really critical for. But there's also, and this is again something that wasn't budgeted for last year, but you ended up paying, which was $30,000 to extend. This is like the limited amount. We're even going less than we had last year for Munis's extension, which kind of has the longitudinal database of all of our budgeting. I'd like to be able to say that we're not going to need that for a little while longer, and everything's going to be in Excel. But I think we are going to need that data, and the license, you kind of have to have it for a year. I wish I could get it for 3 months, but we're going to need that data, so we kind of got a plan to budget for it. And hold me to it, but I very much hope that, or I'm extremely confident that next year that'll be the last time we have that expense, so. That was pretty much it for their budgets. There's a couple more that, we're actually gonna go to streetlights and traffic signals. Next, they did pull off their professional services. Is
page
down.
are you on?
Oh, sorry, I'm still on 177. I would just note on the technology budget that they dropped their professional services by 5,000, but we're gonna see that picked up in a little more, it's gonna be in traffic lights, for the engineering for, and we're gonna try and do that this summer while it's kind of peak, for traffic engineering to sort of make sure our lights are handling pretty significant capacity that's coming through here, so, that was the only other big change, here. But streetlights is 265. This one should be pretty straightforward. I do have just one note. It's less of a budget change and more of something I was talking to Jason about, and I think it's gonna be both in some ways a beautification and also an energy savings, but we're looking to go to LED bulbs on all of the streetlights. Pretty sure that'll be like budget neutral in year one and the budget savings thereafter. So in some ways, we might just kind of manage the cash flow to arrange for that project. It's budget neutral, but we'll keep everybody updated on that. Also, I'm kind of a lighting geek, so there's all kinds of different types of LED lights, and sometimes they're like horrible, no offense, Casey, hospital lights that
They
are.
are horrible.
Yeah.
They drain your soul.
Yeah, we have some historic posts, and I think there's gonna be a lot more in beautification, a lot of stuff Jan is doing, grants, and we'll talk, I think, next week, incorporating the Parks and Rec requests and budgets into some of my thinking on their pieces, because I know they have some requests, but we're trying to think holistically as a unit here on how we kind of improve our city and streetscapes, so.
So just a shout out to night skies, it sounds like you're paying attention to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When we replace lighting, make sure it's directed down, and when I'm headed home at night over, coming past A1 Relics, and there's the glow of Ellsworth, and however much of that is in our control to point lighting down instead of.
Sure.
Isn't that in our ordinances, a streetlight ordinance?
Yeah, it's not, but for development, it's also in the lighting standards. Our lighting standards don't make a ton of sense. It's one of our parts of our development ordinance that needs to change, but we always usually grant a waiver for dark sky standards. Their standards do actually make sense. We just need to incorporate them into our ordinance.
Right, so just make sure while we're doing that stuff, that dark skies is a part of it.
Noted. Mood, too. I like kind of a historic. I wish we could do like kind of those fake gaslight things. No, I digress.
Next year,
I
next year.
digress.
It's really funny, when I was a child, when you'd go to Bangor, and back then Bangor seemed like so far away, when you hit that hill and you could see the Ellsworth lights, you
Yeah.
knew you were almost home.
I agree.
It was always, it
But
was
it's
always
also
so nice.
glowing more than it needs to, I think, but when I drive from
Comforting. I always
Augusta
find
around
it
the hill, I'm
comforting,
4
but-
miles from home.
I was driving it, I was like, oh yay, I'm almost home.
Yeah.
Okay, but it can glow
Every
less and you'll
day.
still get there. It's a lot of money going up into the sky.
Yeah, although I've had a lot of visitors who are like, why are there no lights anywhere around here? This
right.
must be horribly dangerous to drive around these houses. We like it that way. We like it that way. You look at the stars, you see why.
So you can see the moose easier, that's why.
We're gonna go next to traffic signal budget, which is 271. I had no changes here, but I will note that the traffic signal engineering, again, was reduced from 5,000 at professional services, but we're at 10,000 is probably the estimation for that cost. Hoping to get that done this summer at peak traffic, so we can really take a look at how we're letting people go in and out.
What's gonna be done this summer? A survey?
Engineering study on our traffic signals
Okay.
and like how they accommodate the traffic, so, especially with the increased visitors and, how the traffic flows work, are they timing at the right levels? Probably report back to you. I think this is kind of a fun, in addition to like the LED lights, and wanted to see like exactly what ones we get in. I'm really curious about this. I think it's a really interesting project, so.
There was a study done a few years back on the Water Street, Main Street light and traffic scape.
Okay.
Somebody created some consultant created a plan for a few different options of beautifying and making that more efficient that I think Manager Mosier sent to us at some point last year or 2 years ago when we were talking about that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It exists somewhere.
I'm,
and it
I'm
was
sure
pretty comprehensive.
Jason's on the, I'll follow up with him on it. I'm sure he's incorporated that. I think it might be some other lights, but I'll follow up with him on that.
I think, yeah, we were supposed to have like some smart flow system that, I think it was called, I think it was Smart Flow, we were supposed to have that. And have all of the cameras been replaced from the damages that were done through the storms?
Yeah.
So we should, because I know you have to steal one from one place for another, and.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that one, I know all of them are functioning. I
Okay,
don't know if
alright,
we've
that's good.
gotten back to where they were before. And for that sensor, DOT is supposed to come through and look at our lights at some point and potentially upgrade all of them to have those smart
Smart
sensors that
grid or
talk
some- I
to
think
each
that was
other.
what it's
Yeah.
called. Yep, okay.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. I know I just approved a line item on something relative to that too, so. The signals budget, now we're gonna head to social services, couple updates here. One is a small mistake on mine that I caught, which we kind of talked about last time, which was, sorry, 311, 312. Is the Friends in Action, was a double in the miscellaneous budget. Again, I think next, I'm gonna try and do nonprofits, social, and like recreation and all those kind of together, and then social services, and kind of fix that for next year, just so it's a little more streamlined. Also, because of the doubling, I saw it as like a much bigger increase, and recommend bringing it down to 5,000. It's, my recommendation is to hold it at 10,000, which is what it was previously at, Friends in Action.
You're saying that's what we did last year?
Yeah, so the other one was like, it was at, so it's basically like a, you know, it seemed like a big increase, but actually the true what it was last year was in the other one. So we're keeping it in social services now, but when I was looking at the budget and being like, hey, that's a really big increase this year, like, they haven't asked for an increase. So we're gonna give them we're not gonna decrease on that. That being said, there are decreases in this piece that I have put in. Was Downey's Community Partners reduced to 3,500 and WIC to 5,000, just based on the level of increase. And I can leave that to you all. Again, that was part of the process of, for WIC, it was at 1,500 on 24, and then it goes to 10,400. I know they have substantiation on why in here, if you'd like to reconsider that. Same thing for Downey's Community Partners, went from 2,000 to 5,000, and I pulled it back to 3,500, based on just including all our departments and every other department, if there was large increases. And as we talked about with Heart of Ellsworth, I was less scientific here and more, looking for the really big increases requested. I know I think it was WIC was relative some pretty substantial federal dollar declines that they're looking to make the shortfall on. So I felt that the 1,500 to 5,000 for the city of Ellsworth was the more appropriate from the 1,500 to 10,400. But if you want to reconsider increasing those, we could as well. But-
And did you add the Downey's Wood Bank?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's Downey's Wood Bank, the other two, Life Flight, and the other one are like in there as requests, but not funded. So, and you'll see that in the budget. But Downey's Wood Bank was added and funded at the level they requested.
Do you remember what that was?
1,000.
Did we write that
$1,000.
down?
And then Life Flight and there was one other one.
It was like
The in-home
Northern Light.
hospital
Northern
care.
It was in Northern Light.
Yeah,
Northern
it's a
Light.
hospital. They're both added, but then manager request was 0.
Can I ask one question? SPCA, we didn't fund last year, and this year, I don't remember them coming, did I?
I don't think they came
They
in.
didn't
Did I
come, but
slip
they
into
turned
a coma
in-
for that part?
No, they turned in a request, but no one
Oh.
showed up to present.
Oh, yeah, and that was my fund at last year. I think I missed that. I did bring that to just level funding at last year's $1,000
Oh,
request.
okay.
And not the increase.
It looks like financial year 2024 is 0.
It is,
Sorry, yeah.
yeah, we've never funded
Well, maybe-
SPCA.
They're new this year.
I mean, I'm not against funding the animals, I just was curious.
Oh, they're new this year.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those ones in general, like how, like, we could kind of open the floodgates for nonprofits and city spending. I could say, you know, I don't know, it's more of a philosophical thing. I was trying to look at other cities and towns and how they do this, you know, and, yeah, I don't know. This is one that I don't have an answer to.
Well, we have a policy for social services, and it's supposed to be for life, God, I have to get
Life
that.
safety.
Life safety, like food, medical, those types of things, it's not animals. Which, I'm with you, I mean, I love animals, but if we're gonna fund that, that should be over in the miscellaneous and not in social services, and follow the policy.
It's hard for me as well, without somebody coming in, especially for the
Yeah.
first time, and saying, here's who I am, here's who we are, here's what we do, and maybe this isn't, you know, funding food and things for people, but here's the activities and fundraisers and events we put on, and here's why it's a benefit, and it's just hard to conceptualize that without somebody coming in and explaining it.
Not to disagree with that, but if you look at, I'd be interested in like the spay-neuter aspects. That, what happens if they aren't here, I guess, is the question about the strays and, there's,
I just don't think that's a human life.
so I
Need?
don't, well, if it goes over to miscellaneous, I have a note here from before where apparently there's a ordinance where we're supposed to prioritize that I wasn't aware of, but I think they do add, it's not just a nice thing, I think there is value for, getting animals up off the street before they're hit, before we have an animal control officer. What are the options they have to deal with them when they pick up a stray or new creatures that need to be
Yeah,
ideally taken care of?
the one talking about the note that I actually mentioned last time I found, like, there is a policy. I didn't know about this, the one you're talking about, the overall, but it's like, we're supposed to have like a committee. So like, you know, again, we're kind of getting a little late to the party here, but next year.
Yeah, that would
like-
be nice, then the committee could make the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the committee kind of comes in and we talk about it as opposed to me, you know, with only 45% of the budget to
Yeah.
cut from, to trying to pull the mill rate down, and I'm just going to everything. Oh, that's a big increase for this year. Like, and yeah, and giving a little more.
Do we still, does the police department budget still include a line item for taking strays that they pick up? Is there still?
Miscellaneous contractual, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think it's labeled as such.
No,
Yeah, that's
we
it, they don't
used
do
to
it.
pay-
Yeah.
We had to pay, I thought the SPCA at one point, but one of the vets,
Small animal clinic.
small animal clinic, and we pay them to take those strays.
Police budget.
And,
I did not know that.
They had a lot of lines in
We
there.
have to pay for
and then,
it.
yeah, we have to pay for it.
But just cats and
We
dogs.
still do that, I don't know where.
Yeah, I
no.
don't think we do farm animals, but I don't,
I'll talk to the police, see how
but
the.
I'm pretty sure we fund
Sure,
that.
it's miscellaneous.
And I wonder why they're taken to a commercial vet clinic and not to the SPCA?
Because they're held, if they're a stray, they're held for a certain amount of time. And then,
But the
I don't
SPCA
know
does
what
that
happens
as
to them
well.
if someone doesn't pick them up.
Maybe because it's in Ellsworth and SPCA
Is
is
in
in
Trenton.
Trenton and staying within the city limits or something. I don't know. It's
There
been-
used to be a contract.
Yeah, I think it
don't
is
know.
still a contract.
Is it still a contract? So that's a question for the police department, but there is a contract for someone to take those strays and,
Okay, I've got it.
I just was wondering if it
Put it
was
in
the
the log?
SPCA, we're already giving them money.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
That's the point I was
Right.
very long-windedly saying, trying to
Sorry,
get
I'm-
to. But it's, you know, it's gonna be my bedtime.
So, yeah, so on the SPCA, I was hearing kind of mostly no, and Nancy, yes.
I just, I agree with you that if it's a first time, I mean, they just should have come to the
Well,
meeting.
did they even know that, I guess, in their defense? We had people showing up on the wrong nights, we had people not show up because they didn't know, we gave them another chance, Heart of Ellsworth had a chance, so. And if, I don't know what miscellaneous is, so.
At the very
that's-
least, can we move it to miscellaneous? Because it's not a social service.
It definitely has social service. Yeah, I want to get rid of miscellaneous. I think it needs to be nonprofits section with nonprofits in the we had that recreation kind of one. how about I reach out and, see if I can get somebody to explain what this is gonna be for.
Is there a
Again,
letter somewhere in all of this
I'm looking for
from
it.
them?
I did email them in
I was gonna say, John was
May.
in touch
Early May.
with all of these people.
Yeah, I was a little nervous on this one because, for what you mentioned, Nancy, the first round, it was kind of.
Yeah, it was chaotic early on, but anyways, I will not get up on a soapbox, but there's a lot of service there for people who have to forfeit their pets because they become homeless or.
Yeah, so we do have their thing in here, SPCA of Hancock County, funds requested for the Prevent a Litter program.
Prevent a litter, okay. What page are you looking at?
369.
Thank you. So
Pet
again,
food pantry.
strays gets expensive fast.
Surrounded animals, prevent a litter. Yeah,
Interesting.
sounds like
So-
the funds they're requesting are to prevent litters.
Okay, so it is spay neuter stuff, which pays for itself.
My thing is just, is the, there's a whole variety of social services and nonprofits that do amazing work that pay for themselves, and that's my thing. I mean, just, especially they weren't here, and again, the committee, how we would judge this, but it's not huge money. This isn't one I'm happy to move forward with. I brought it down to 1,000 from 2,000, but you keep it there, or you can go to 500 and we reach out and say, let's talk more next year on exactly what this is going for.
I think 1,000's reasonable,
Don't
just like the Wood
necessarily.
Bank for a new organization. Maybe they can bring some kittens by City Hall at some point.
I was gonna say.
No, 'cause I'll take one home.
That's our new security system, is we're bringing some dogs to City Hall.
De-escalation.
Or de-escalate.
You're defenseless
Yeah, there you
against
go.
kittens.
That's what the kittens are for.
Everett's grandmother, yes.
I think we should get rid of leash laws and go back to the good old days when the dogs roamed in packs and it was, no, just kidding. It's actually, I'm kind of not.
In the dark of night.
My hiking trail.
Yeah. The last thing, so I've got the agenda for next week. I think that was the details, the manager's requests. Thank you all for your feedback. We've been cataloging the logs. If you could bring up the Charlie budget. I call this the Charlie budget just because it's where I'm keeping the logs. And we have a separate one that's connected to everything else, so I didn't want to be actually changing things in there, just keeping track of where we're at.
And if people don't like it, we can blame you.
There we go. That's
Really?
why
It's
I'm
Charlie's
here.
budget.
I'm gonna pass.
You're gonna have to talk to him.
So,
Minimal.
we're keeping track of everything, even a lot of the X's are things that have already been done. You can kind of scroll up a little bit, Matt. The A's are, I can't remember why I described it, but that's basically things I'm gonna do later that aren't even relative to the budget necessarily. That, hey, we need multiple quotes on legal training, for some of the policies and procedures. Like, absolutely I'm gonna do that. There's a fair amount that are in that kind of category that were just sort of, but that weren't necessarily budget dependent, so. We're getting through them. Next week, a lot of the big ones on the ARPA budget, I think we're really close on, I think I'm pretty clear on the clarity on where everybody's at. There's a small thing on the tasers and grant funding. There is this county request, I think, is it a county request for grant funding for the tasers, or was it? No, it was a congressionally directed.
Well, the county requested to congressionally directed spending.
So that was in this congressionally directed spending package. So if that was, we were to get funded for that, and we used ARPA, we'd essentially have to get, as opposed to if we use city funds, we would get reimbursed. Whereas if we get, so if we're gonna get separately congressionally directed spending, we might wanna try and use city funds to get reimbursed and use ARPA for other things. So there's some small points on that, but maybe it's not the full amount, and, we could fund future years. So that's really a very small sticking point, but I think as the last meeting, we really figured out the last places for ARPA. And we're just trying to make sure it's kind of, the decks are cleared on that one. Same thing with TIF, there's I think we're there, Nate and Jason, they had this, it's like a beautiful mind, they had all kinds of this go to here. It was, but I think they're in good shape. We'll talk capital, which also it's kind of local roads. Red Bridge Road is the real last sticking point. We're starting to work on that. It's going to happen this year. I'm getting the like actual payment schedule, so I can see how much we actually need to fund this year. And that's the one, again, lack of encumbrances. Previous councils had put $300,000, but that, without a reconciliation and seeing all the undesignated spending, that might be one that we need to fund in this budget cycle, and that's the big one. That's like $1 million. So that has city match. It's already, or state match. It's already in progress. It has to be done. But I'll have a final capital recommendation. And then pulling off the ARPA, we'll talk about the staff requests, the COLAs, the recreation side of things, and how, like, what those costs would be, just so you have the kind of big picture. And I'll give a little more background on that piece, what I'm calling the human capital budget request. I did, just to kind of level set and kind of where we're at, I think today, I've been really a lot, like, okay, the amount of the spending, or the total size of the budget compared to previous years, I was thinking a lot about what you were talking about, Steve, and like those increases, what you talked about, Michelle, and just getting that $1,000 increased tax bill last year, just like, or 2 years ago, or last one. So I was trying to and so I had Larry pull, and I'm going to give two things. One, this is the comparative mill rates for last year to like service centers. And I think these are a little deceptive, and Ellsworth is really unique. So to your point, Michelle, like just looking at a mill rate is not the full story. But to me, this actually kind of tells the full story, and I'll explain the this one this is basically all of the mill rates, all of the tax commitments, all of the valuations going back to 2009. And to me, this kind of tells the story of tax history in Ellsworth. Numbers, when presented like this, to me are great. Like, you can finally sort of tell the story of commitments and valuations and like the funding of government. What I found kind of interesting that really stood out is if you look at line 1 in the top left area, and let's say, you see a 13.35 mill rate, you go across to like the levy dollar amount difference, which I think is kind of important to just kind of, that's the real dollars that were pulled in to fund additional, city hall spending. So $614,000 in 2009 additional to, make that 13.6 budget. In 2010, and Tammy and Michelle were here for these, it's $378,000 for the $14 million, $731,000 bigger budget that next year for the $14 million in 2011. Now, jump down to 2021, FY 2021. A $42,000 increase to the budget. So to me, that was like, okay. And then the next year, $142,000 increase to the budget in FY 2022. FY 2023, $145,000. So these are pretty high order of magnitude, less than you were asking for in early 2000s. And like 0.2, 0.7, 0.7, these are also like a couple of the highest inflation years since the 1970s. So the idea that city governments, and like ARPA, now that I know the ARPA spending, like ARPA was not like plugging a massive gap in the budget. It was mostly spent on things and like a one-time kind of payment. So, so to me, it's like, how did the city like keep that low of a budget rate, regardless of inflation? I mean, the payroll numbers, it's $550,000 in collective bargaining increases just for this year. That's a single year over, and that's triple what the request. So to me, there's like, and then you see 3.6 million last year. So that's what happens, right, Michelle? You had everybody here who lives in Ellsworth. You had those tax rates set pretty low, and then to me that there was things that weren't captured. And I already seen a lot of things that weren't captured, and I don't have the time to deep dive into those other budgets and the books and like what was a TIF miscalculation, whether it was something else. But
Where does COVID funding fit? Those were the COVID years.
that's ARPA and COVID
But even
funding.
ARPA, those came later. That's like we need to recover. But when it was hitting the fan, we all
Direct
were
COVID
getting
funding?
checks, and I know there was business, the PPP.
Payroll protection plan.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there
is-
was,
I don't know, if there's our municipal Like they just plugged a.
Were they eligible for PPP?
Municipalities?
Yeah.
No, businesses.
There must have been something, was there something similar? I had heard the same for schools after the school budget passed.
School at 2 million in ARPA.
It was-
Theirs was actually more on like
That's why, they were
staffers.
flat funded, but they also, yeah, were able to use some of that money.
Last year, though, I think that the biggest part of that $1 million was the school department, because the school department flat funded 2 or 3 years in a row.
But were they also, this is where, and again, once people who watch this and then talk to you later say, but they were getting COVID funds then. That's why they were able to go without the increase. So is there
I
something
don't think
similar
they did.
here?
I don't think they did. They
You mean the
got,
school?
the school, they got ARPA funds when we got ARPA funds to help out with those expenses, but they didn't get PPP loans or anything like that, because those are set up for businesses.
Right.
So they wouldn't close.
But there
But
must,
that they-
it amazes me that I can't remember what was, for all of us, this was like a life-changing couple of years.
I know, we were thinking about it all the time.
But I knew on my individual and running a nonprofit, we were eligible. But I wasn't deep in with schools and municipalities then. I just wonder if that is part of the
Yeah,
solution.
I could look. I don't know if there's any separate like just direct municipal like funding that could help offset those things. I haven't.
Did the state allocate, the
Did
state
you-
got federal
you
money,
were
did they
living
send
this,
some
do
out
you
to
remember?
municipalities?
I wasn't living, I was in
Oh,
law
you
school.
were
I
living
was in law
after
school.
that. That's right, I forgot about that.
I didn't know where Ellsworth was.
Do you remember COVID?
I do remember COVID, different experience. But I do know like the city did strip back to bare bones services during COVID, so it didn't
Yeah.
seem to me that they had funding to keep everything even level at that point.
And then I feel like the council also was basically, didn't want to change the mill rate at all, so we held it constant for that 2021.
What's the thing? They held it at 18.
Yeah.
So that's just directionally for me, trying to get it back to 17.3, and then you look at the trend in Ellsworth. You see this 15.7, and in FY23 for the 21 million commitment.
It's awful.
At a 15.7, because and if you look all the way to the right, you have a big valuation increase.
Yeah.
And to only ask for an additional 145,000 on top of your budget, just knowing how, anyways, it stood out to me that we were kind of trending to this 18 category for a while, $700,000 increases a year, and then you just see the levy difference percent just.
Oh, and as you said, we're paying for that now with things that we're finding that
Yeah, and
weren't done in best
General fund
practices.
usage.
yeah, undesignated fund balance, that's the other thing, and
Yeah.
the payroll not budgeting for overtime and the FICAs, even what we're doing now, which is
Right.
actuals on payroll, is not just budgeted necessarily. For me, it was like I wish I had more time to really dig in to some of these pieces to see if it was like a TIF miscalculation or, because 2019, 2020, I think those were some of your last ones. I can see the stuff in there. In some ways, that's what we're basing this off of. So I might go back into, I know that we talked about the roads piece. I did look into that. That was a double entry. I think of why it looked like it was overspent instead of underspent. So it's like basically two of the same things. The infrastructure, I think, disinvestment, and so, we gotta look into that.
And I think too, we started at 1335, because we were up to 17 or 18 and we did a reval. When did we do that, Tammy?
I'm guessing it was 2017? No?
No,
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 it
it
was
was
before then.
it was before I was city manager.
Well, there was a negative, there was the only one that I was curious about from your era, Tammy, was when you asked for 66,000 less in FY 2017, but that was the only one that was also like the $1.6 million increase in FY 2016.
Yeah, we did the reval before 2009, because it was, the mill rate was reduced drastically, but the tax bills all went up for the
Oh.
Branch Lake people.
I think it's because.
So we're
there's
trying to
such
hold
an
everything level.
increase in the,
So I'll look into what you said, Nancy, and just if there's any, again, this is, we're into actuals, fine tooth comb on all these pieces, because of that big jump from 21 to 24, last FY year, where, and I have found a lot of things that just weren't budgeted for, $100,000 in stipends that, were not, asked for from council. There's a bunch of those things in there that just previously, the $30,000 for Munis that we paid for it last year, but, wasn't brought to council, so but even those weren't adding up to those total dollar figures. It was like, did they not calculate debt the right way and ask for it? Did they not calculate this? There were multiple budget freezes over the last year, so I'm still trying to do some investigating. Part of it's, but to your point, Steve, I think that's what set me down this path, was like, what is this story of the increases? And like, wow, actually that year, those are pretty small increases on the commit. Like, you wouldn't want to do that, right? You wouldn't want to have that big 3.68 million, but if previous years, you just, you bring the mill rate down that low to 15.7 when it was trending at 18, if it would stay there for a while, this could be, you can stagger it. In some ways, this is the past, but it did tell kind of a story that I thought was interesting.
When the mill rate went down, that's when property values went crazy.
Yeah, you can see the $181 million increase in property values, but because it was only a $145,000 increase in difference, that's why the mill, because your commit is pretty similar to the previous year, so you're able to really drive your mill day rate down with that increase. But then, when you get your next tax year bill and you go from the 15.7 to 17.3, you basically capture all of that property value revaluation plus the mill rate
Right.
in one lump versus, you're at the same.
And I can even do on this, because I do know some of the answers for these things.
Okay.
What percentage, we're going up 5% in the valuation this year?
It's roughly, but again, that's also like, it won't finish, we're gonna set the commit based on all the requests from City Hall, and then Larry will finish his valuations, and I'll obviously keep everybody informed of like what the mill has to be with a certain amount of overlay to get you to that, what the dollar figure you're doing in the commit. So we're gonna finalize that levy amount, right, and that'll in some ways be indicative of what the dollar difference would be to the previous year, but the mill rate and the property value rate, based on the property evaluation, to get that dollar amount is sort of the final step in the process. Then you send out tax bills in, I think, September, to kind of pull in October, and then the second batch is March, I want to say. So,
The averages, the first 12 years versus last 4 years on especially the real estate property difference, it's a lot of different numbers there, but those are really striking. The sort of
Which column are you in, Jim?
It's the.
difference.
Fourth.
Yeah,
Well, that's cash, yeah.
Value.
taxable real
Oh,
property
sorry.
value difference,
This-
second to the last column.
Okay.
And then if you go all the way down, you get the averages of first 12 years and the averages of last 4 years. Just the.
Wait, which, could you point to it?
Yeah, bottom right here.
Oh, okay.
Just this sort of,
9,000
Oh,
versus
percent.
82,000.
yeah, it's just like an almost exponential increase of growth of like, yes, everything's growing in value, and then last 4 years, the skyrocketing. It's just, that's, we all knew that was the case, but seeing
Right.
that they're averaged out is striking.
And to me, I've gone some deep dives, like, we were looking at the like,
Yeah.
the WSD developments, like where the Walmart is, like Walmart's at like, those big properties, it's like 300 and some thousand in taxes a year. And, we're the economic development team, and everybody really wants those pad sites. And, kind of, as I think about growth and reducing tax rates and smart growth, and kind of where your area is, like, you're like, wow, if we could get something else of that magnitude, or even similar, there's actually smaller ones, like, it's not the Hannaford, but like a Hannaford's type thing, that's also, those are big, 100,000 or so, those types of really big stores, which gets to this piece on like the service center mill rates, which you can see, Ellsworth is, even at 17.3 is to the bottom. I think there's a few deceptive things I think about this, is Ellsworth is 97 square miles, so just the amount of land is value, right? Because your total value of, we know that nobody else is 97 square miles.
But do keep in mind, we have to provide services for 97 square miles, which is road maintenance, it's the
Exactly.
ambulance, it's fire. So, it
Yeah.
doesn't work to our advantage if we're having to service the same number of people on the larger,
No,
areas.
no, it doesn't at all.
So-
It's a big, you know, for the
if
60,000.
we're sprawling out there, yeah.
Two counties, I really don't think any city has that level of like geographic service area magnitude,
Nope.
you know?
For the largest city, so area-wise.
Yeah.
Oh, the certified ratio? I think the certified ratio is what the state says they certify us as, is what we're taxing at and what they say the valuation is. So you have to be within a certain
Because if
ratio
you
before you
drop
have to do a
below
reval.
70%, is that
I
when
think it
the
is,
whole
then you have to
reval
do a
is done?
reval.
And I think that's what Blue Hill just went through, is like the state required a reval because of their,
Yeah.
like their certification. But again, it's not, you know, I'm doing my darndest to try and give us options to get that mill rate down as much as possible, but also to be true accounting on everything we know. And, Steve?
I think this is a great time to bring up that you and your finance team have handed out documents, this is my third year, that has driven a lot of great questions. And it seems that, I just want to say that all of these questions aren't questioning this information. I think it's the first time that someone has taken the initiative to dig in and throw out numbers like this document right here. This is powerful information, this is history, and it drives a lot of questions that I didn't see in the last two budget sessions that I sat through. And this is great info. It
I
was
agree.
brushed over before.
I totally agree with that, and I agree, and I think there's a second, one is like the actual information, which is super helpful, and the other is just the atmosphere, that we can all ask the questions and bring up the points, and it's just like very nice right here. And like really helpful
Yeah.
and useful, and you don't worry who you're gonna make mad by asking a question, or, yeah.
Verbal happiness. or-
There's a lot of
Bouquet.
Verbal bouquet.
verbal
Bouquet.
bouquet.
I was gonna say, we're back to
compassion and
bouquet, aren't we?
empathy.
Yeah.
No, I just really, I've been thinking about it a lot in the last couple weeks, and it's really been very different and very useful seeming.
Yeah, and you don't, the other thing about this, I mean, this was Jason, although the first version of this came from Carrie. And then Jason had a 2023, and I said, well, get it to me by the next one if you could, like, that'd be great. And then showed up an hour before I got here, I was like, and, yeah, I was talking with our tax collector, Sue, on this one, and, you know, asking her about some of these things, and she was giving me the actual story of what it was like to be here during some of those times, and the budget freezes, and the discussions that were had, and a ton of institutional knowledge here, and really great staff to work with on this, so.
If I can, I would think, so one, I want to let everyone know, as of Saturday, I'm on vacation, so I'm going to miss all next week, but I'll be back the day of the vote on the budget. Coming in, we're going to Canada. I thought this would all be done in May, that's what people told me. So I'd scheduled the vacation in June, but I'll be back for the final meeting. We'll get in that day, so I'll be back for that special meeting. Joe just wanted to let everyone know.
Great.
But what I will say is, this data and information helps put things in context, and considering where this budget process started, and, you know, Charlie walked into, and, I think.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It's mostly Matt's fault. I think I know we can trim up and down, and so I won't be able to be part of the conversations next week, but I think we're really close, and it seems I know it'd be great to get down to 17.3. At the same time, I think we're putting it into context and looking at other communities. I don't think if we were to stay at 18.2, while not, ideal, is not unreasonable. And so, that being said, if there's ways to get it down more while maintaining, providing the services we need to, I think we're in a good place. And then, once we actually reconcile and understand what's going on, next year's project, I think we'll just be setting ourselves up for be much more effective next year, and be able to maybe be more targeted and really get our bang for our buck, so to speak.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely, and we'll, yeah, I think next week, some of the really big ticket items that we're finalizing, I know we've got some daily meetings coming up where we're just taking each of the really big pieces and and gonna lock it in, so next Thursday, feeling plenty of time for us to polish up the really big pieces and test our assumptions and get back to you here to say, hey, here's where it's at, following these conversations, and, potentially having some of the big choices on capital or other things on if we need to go lower and what that would mean, so.
And you'll recall, I'm not going on vacation, but I'm working the evening of the 20th, so I won't be here next week. I will be.
And I'll probably need to take some of your time. So not tonight, but also some other pieces. There's some ones. Thank you, Tammy, Michelle, really helpful on some of the institutional sides of things. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's.
Are we all done?
Council meeting Monday and
We're all set?
20th.
Good, Nate.
Great work.